This is Larry Jordan, the host of the Digital Production Buzz. The following interview is an excerpt from a recent program. To hear the entire program, visit digitalproductionbuzz.com. Josh Apter is a practicing filmmaker and the founder and president of Manhattan Edit Workshop, a training company in New York City. He's also hosting the upcoming Muse Shop Sight, Sound, and Story workshop focusing on cinematography. Hello, Josh. Welcome.
Welcome. How you doing?
I am talking to you. I'm doing great. You know, I was just thinking about your workshop coming up. How would you define cinematography?
Wow. Do we have another 16 minutes? I think we could take. But you know, cinematography to me is it's really this extension of the director's vision. You know, I make movies and I co-direct with a cinematographer, and we generally, you know, have this really interesting symbiotic relationship where he understands how to visualize things that we'll either co-write or all write. And you know, I think I look at that relationship between the cinematographer and the director as this very collaborative unit that is together a filmmaker in a way.
Yeah, but that's a pretty vague statement. Is the cinematographer worrying about the camera? Is it worrying about lighting? And where does the cinematographer end and production design begin?
Well, I mean, you bring up a great point because filmmaking is such a collaborative art form. You know, and I've talked to people about this. You know, you can be a writer and write by yourself in a room and create incredible works of art. You can be a painter and isolate yourself and, you know, be an incredibly prolific and successful artist. And to be a filmmaker, you are working with a large number of people. And in the best case scenario, you're you know, letting their talents shine and letting them bring what they can to the situation. And hopefully everybody has a common vision, or the vision changes based on the strengths of the people coming to the, you know, to the production. Production design is incredibly important. Cinematography is incredibly important. The direction, the acting. I mean, there's so many elements at play that, you know, it's almost, where does any of it end and begin when you're really talking about these important elements of the process? I mean, so much of it's moving at the same time that, to me, it's amazing that anything gets done.
I was just thinking, you're a filmmaker yourself. When you hire a cinematographer to work with you, I mean, clearly there has to be a level of experience and a level of trust. I mean, the personal issues, but are you hiring them for their camera skills and framing, or are you hiring them for their ability to light?
Both. You know, I'm lucky. I've been working with the same cinematographer. He's my directing partner also, but we've been working together since the mid-90s. And so I no longer need to even speak out loud. I mean, the way we work together is, you know, whatever's written there or whatever the idea is, and we improvise a lot too. He generally can understand what I'm hoping that it looks like, the visual style in terms of camera movement and lighting, and we discuss that, we toss it around. In some cases, we don't have time to do either of those things, and then we just try to grab it before we lose light, or everyone has to go home and, you know, do their day jobs.
Thinking about this, I know that you've got a conference coming up called Sight, Sound, and Story, the Art of Cinematography, and I want to talk with you about that in just a minute. But I was just thinking, are you seeing a lot of change in the field of cinematography right now, or is it pretty much the same? I mean, the cameras change all the time, lights change all the time, but has the craft changed because of that?
Well, it's funny, I'm looking on my phone because just as we were talking, this Kickstarter campaign for, I think it's called SteadyXP or something. It's a stabilization system that's just been developed where it's an attachment to your camera that mounts on the cold shoe that monitors your movement. And then with some software, you know, interpolation, it can counteract the camera's movement by sort of balancing out the way it negates the waveforms, but it will turn handheld cinematography into almost Steadicam-like cinematography. So in that sense, it's changing dramatically every day. I mean, you know, you've seen what's going on with drone cinematography and putting those capabilities into a lot of other people's hands. The barrier of entry is a lot lower financially. But, you know, and this is similar to the way it was in editing. I mean, you know, you can't because you can learn Final Cut Pro, by bootlegging a copy and learning it on, the buttons over a weekend, that doesn't necessarily, make you an editor in the sense that you understand rhythm and timing and character and the shape of something like that. And I think cinematography is, just because you have these tools and a lot of these toys, and believe me, there are plenty of toys out there, and they're all getting newer and better and cheaper and bigger and more pixels. It doesn't necessarily make everyone who can afford them a cinematographer. So that discipline remains identical in a way. You know what I mean? It's about telling a story using light and image, and those things were the same whether you were shooting on film or shooting on Umatic tape or shooting on 8K.
I would prefer to shoot on 8K than Umatic tape, but having done...
It's the work of the devil, right?
So that gets me to I think a challenge that I've been thinking about myself is how do we train people to understand what the craft of cinematography is, because it's easy to get distracted by all the toys, which leads me into the speaker series you've got. So tell me about that.
Well, the first question about how to teach it, I think in the early days of the quote DSLR revolution, I was teaching classes with a gentleman you may know, Jem Schofield from the
Yep.
C47, and it was remarkable how much the discipline resembled film in that you were working with regular lenses with manual exposure control, and you had to understand certain things in a way that you didn't have to when you had point-and-shoot video cameras with zoom rockers and autofocus, and it really brought some of that film discipline back into the training of cinematography. So I thought that was terrific. You'll never be able to teach people to not see what they're shooting until it gets back from the lab, which I think the excitement of that you'll never be able to recreate that. And I don't think many people would rather. Video assist is great, playback is great. I don't think anyone would ever go back if they could, but there's certain things that are just different now, and for good reason. I think I lost the thread of the question, so if you want to go back to what you were asking.
On the other hand, waiting until the next day to realize that you've entirely screwed up the entire day's shoot because you had a hair in the gate, I don't want to go through that feeling either. So there's pluses and minuses here.
Right, and just like no editor that I've met who started in film and went to digital would ever go back to film, I don't think any cinematographer would go back to basically wearing a blindfold for 24 hours until they know what they had on, had gotten the day before. It's, yeah, exactly.
So what was your thinking in putting this workshop together? Because I was impressed that it's not really a workshop, it's a speaker series. You're listening to a bunch of experts talking. What was the thinking behind this?
Well, it's a symposium, much like Sight, Sound, and Story, the post-production event that we've been doing for the past 3 years. And then for 4 years before that, we were co-producing EditFest New York with American cinema editors. And, I'll give credit where credit is due. The newly minted president of Manhattan Edit Workshop, Jason Banke, he's actually going to be, I just outed him because the press release isn't out yet, but he really was thinking ahead saying, we've been doing these editing events, but we do teach cinematography. We're all interested in it. We're filmmakers. It's sight, sound, and story. We've done VFX panels and sound panels. Why don't we branch out and do a panel dedicated to the art of cinematography? And he's really taken it and run with it. And I'm helping as much as I can and loving every minute of it. But I think it's a logical extension of what we do. And it'll be just like those summits that we do in June, but it's a single evening and 2 panels. And we're starting smaller here, but it may end up being as big an event as the post-production event that we do every June.
Now the panels caused me to think, but well, let me talk about the panels first. You've got 2 tracks. One is on nonfiction and one called Creative Vision. Is cinematography different from nonfiction to fiction, or does cinematography vary by budget? As you have more money, you can do more stuff, and as you have less money, and most nonfiction is pretty poorly funded, you can't do as much. Is the genre the difference, or is the budget the difference?
Well, I think the genre and the budget are the difference. I mean, no amount of money will be able to buy you a real experience that's not happening in front of your eyes. You can't, look, I'd say you'd argue reality TV tries to invent some of these experiences, and I think the conventional wisdom is that some of that stuff is staged and not real. But in real documentary, let's talk about verite traditional documentary, for example. There's no money that could buy you what happened in American Dream. And so that's not a budgetary constraint. That's an observational opportunity. If you're there long enough and you get the trust of these people and you have a good enough eye to find what's out there and see these connections between people in the situation, you'll get that. And it doesn't matter if you have $1,000 or $100,000 or $1 million. So in that sense, I think it's cinematography is cinematography. The challenges are different in narrative and in documentary. And I think that's why we're dividing the two, because we really want to focus one on what happens when there's no take two. What happens when you're thrown into an experience that has a big question mark on it? And then what about the experience of shooting scripted when you're really trying to bring this vision, this thing, this blueprint on paper to fruition? You know, and how does it grow from that thing that we've read and all fallen in love with to something that's going to be interpreted and seen by people as in a purely visual way? It's not like we're going to have the screenplay alongside the screen so we know what the original text was. It becomes something different. And how do you extrapolate that and turn it into something that we sit in the theater and enjoy?
So who do you have doing these presentations?
Well, let's see. I wrote them down so I wouldn't mangle their names. In our nonfiction panel, and the names are they may be growing, so I only want to say we know we're locked in for Matt Parwall, who just won a Sundance Award for Cartel Land, DP, who just shoots nonfiction and fiction, but this was for documentary, and Jerry Ricciotti from Vice TV are going to do our documentary panel, and then Paul Costner, who I think is best known for shooting with Louis C.K. and shooting the Louis Show, and Nancy Schreiber, ASC, whose resume is too long to list. What does she have? The Nines, The Comeback, November, but she, comes with a career's worth of knowledge in the narrative field. And the list is growing. We're still talking to people and working things out. And you know how it is. I mean, schedules open up and close up. But these people, we know they're going to be there. And we already know some of the things they're going to show. And we're getting really excited.
Well, we keep our fingers crossed that most everybody is able to show up. That would be great. I want to come back to cinematography, but let's just put a button on this. Where can people go to learn more about the speaker series? Is there still room for people to attend? And how much are you charging? Yes, the people can still sign up at sightsoundandstory.com. There is a discount code for Larry Jordan viewers, and I wish I had it in front of me. I know what it is. I'm sure we can post it on your site. We can indeed.
It's probably the same code that we had for the Sight, Sound, and Story event in June, I'm sure. And the door, I think it's $45, but with the Larry Jordan discount, it would be less than that. So that's for the panels, and then we throw a big party afterwards with open bar, hors d'oeuvres, and you get to hang out with the panelists and the moderators, and kind of keep asking questions and poking around.
Well, what we'll do is you can email me the code later, and we'll put it in our newsletter that goes out on Friday, tomorrow, and it will tell the world about it and give them a chance to attend and save money at the same time.
That would be terrific.
I want to come back to you, the director, working with a cinematographer for just a minute, and that is, what do you need your cinematographer to know for you to be able to work with them? What are the key things that a cinematographer needs? Now, the guy you've been working with since forever, so you rely on him almost like an extension of yourself. But if you're giving advice to filmmakers who are trying to decide to hire a cinematographer, what should they expect that person to know?
Well, I mean, I think if you're hiring on a certain level, you're going to have to trust that this person understands. You'll have watched a reel. You'll know they can light a scene, that they can, operate the camera. What I would probably look for is a commonality. Sit down and talk to them and find out if they like the same kinds of films, like the same cinematographers. I mean, I think if you find that common, that sort of like that link, and you're inspired by the same things, that chances are you'll see eye to eye when you're working on the project together. That to me is a big thing, because like I said, there is that symbiotic relationship. And what you don't want to do is have this vision in your head of what something would look like and feel like, and then the cinematographer's instinct is exactly opposite that. And then, either you have to come to some compromise, or you're always correcting someone saying, no, that's not what I want. And that's inevitable. That will happen, that someone's interpretation is different than yours. And it should be. But, I think some sort of, simpatico relationship is really vital. You're going to war together, and you are the, sort of the two keys, right? So it's like you're the ones sort of making it all, what rolls downhill, I guess, as they say.
What strikes me in your answer is something that I try to stress to my students, which is technical knowledge is really important, but the ability to work with people is even more important. And that often gets lost as people get hung up in trying to learn the technology, is that you also need to learn how to work with people.
Yeah, and ego, like you're all on the same team. And, there's no room for crazy egos. I've been on sets with crazy directors, and it just makes it an unpleasant experience. And sometimes it yields great art, but it's a drag while you're making it. It's no fun at all.
What website can people go to learn more about the series? Is what again?
It's www.sightsoundandstory, all one word, .com.
And Josh Apter is the founder. Josh, thanks for joining us today.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
If you'd like to see more videos like this one, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. To stay connected and receive updates from The Buzz, sign up for our free weekly newsletter now. Or you can learn more about us on our website. And thanks for watching The Digital Production Buzz.